Welcome to the Get Fit Guys, quick and dirty tips to slim down and shape up. My name is Ben Greenfield. I'm the Get Fit Guy, and this is part 2 of our series on what to eat for breakfast before a big workout or a big race. Now, in the last episode, you learned all about blood glucose, storage carbohydrates, and how to keep your carbohydrate levels topped off, whether that be for a triathlon, a marathon, an obstacle race, a big workout, or any other intense or voluminous event. And in this episode, we're going to delve more into fats and proteins. If you want to access last week's episode, just go to quickanddirtytips.com/getfitguy244. And if you want to access the show notes and all the studies that I mentioned in this week's episode, head over to quickanddirtytips.com/getfitguy245. As you learned in last week's episode, carbohydrates are going to be necessary to a certain extent for some of these big workouts or races, but there's more to life than carbs. For example, there's fat. Consumption of a high-fat meal pre-exercise has actually been shown to alter what's called your substrate supply before exercise and lead to increased free fatty acid levels in your blood, which could then increase fat metabolism during exercise and either preserve some of your precious and limited storage carbohydrate stores, or at least attenuate the normal rate of carbohydrate depletion. Now, it's important to understand that this is mostly anecdotal, and the effects of consuming a high-fat meal on subsequent exercise performance is not something widely acknowledged or proven. Now, there is an exception. It has been noted that in fat-adapted athletes who have followed a high-fat diet for more than 6 months, that's also known as a ketogenic diet, can sustain their athletic performance on a high-fat diet or a high-fat pre-workout or pre-race meal with a significant preservation of their carbohydrate stores during exercise. For example, one study examined the performance effect of consuming a high-fat meal 4 hours before exercise, plus what was called a placebo jelly 3 minutes before exercise. And they compared this with a high-fat meal 4 hours before exercise with a maltodextrin jelly 3 minutes before exercise, a high-carbohydrate meal 4 hours pre-exercise with a placebo jelly 3 minutes before exercise. Okay, so participants in that high-fat meal that also got a little bit of maltodextrin right before their workout showed a significantly higher fat oxidation rate and a significantly decreased carbohydrate oxidation rate during the first 60 minutes of exercise compared to the other groups, along with a significant increase in their time to exhaustion during exercise. Now, what you can learn from this is that by eating a high-fat meal 4 hours prior to a race or workout, and then topping off your carbohydrate stores with just a little bit of carbohydrate, like say an energy gel, right before the workout, can actually allow you to conserve a lot of your storage carbohydrate and to burn more fat as a fuel. So, what kind of fat is best? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Medium chain triglycerides, or what are called MCTs. These fats bypass the relatively long 4 to 6 hour digestion time that many other fats can take and are instead pretty readily available as a form of usable energy. Most athletes can take about 100 to 150 calories of MCTs without experiencing gastric distress. And the easiest way to get these are via high MCT sources like coconut milk, coconut oil, or MCT oil. Now, please note that although the study I referenced earlier involved eating the pre-workout meal 4 hours prior, you should know that they fed the participants in that study about 1,000 calories in that meal. Well, when you consider the fact that your body can only absorb about 250 calories per hour, this makes sense, right? The 1,000 calories get absorbed over a 4-hour time span. However, I'm a bigger fan of eating a smaller meal, like the one I recommended in last week's episode, about 2 hours prior. And that's just due to the simple fact that you'll need sleep before a big workout or a big race. And let's say your workout starts at 8 a.m., it can be inconvenient to get up at, say, 3:30 or 4 a.m. to eat. Rubbing sleepy eyes at the starting line of an Ironman or feeling like taking a nap halfway through a marathon because you woke up at 3 a.m. to stuff 1,000 calories in your face isn't worth it, compared to, say, getting up at 5 a.m. and having a smaller feeding of around 500 calories. So the quick and dirty tip here is that if you're competing in a long race, like an Ironman or an endurance event like a marathon, you should consider including some full-fat coconut milk, a heaping tablespoon of coconut oil, or a level tablespoon of MCT oil with a pre-race meal. Now, next, there's protein. I discussed protein toxicity, and protein overload in detail in Get Fit Guy episode 243, which you can find at quickanddirtytips.com/getfitguy243. Well, there's been quite a bit of research done lately investigating the effects of adding protein to carb drinks or carb supplements, with many studies finding enhanced exercise performance when amino acids or proteins are included with a pre-exercise meal. So one thing that protein does is it lowers the glycemic response to carbs. That means it makes it less likely you'll experience a surge in blood glucose from a pre-race or pre-workout meal, followed by that hypoglycemic slump in energy that can happen by the time you actually get started exercising. The consumption of protein also increases blood levels of amino acids like arginine, leucine, and phenylalanine, which stimulate cells in your pancreas to release hormones like insulin and glucagon. And this hormonal response to protein can help to more quickly drive breakfast into tissues for use as a fuel, and may also stimulate output of glucose by your liver, which can also help you to avoid hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. Now, while it would seem that the presence of insulin might somehow reduce your ability to burn fat, this is counterbalanced by the fat-burning effect that the glucagon hormone can elicit. So there's some research to suggest that combining proteins with carbohydrates may speed up your pre-exercise fuel storage by enhancing the synthesis of storage carbohydrate, or glycogen, and that could lead to even more energy available during exercise. And finally, high blood levels of amino acids can actually increase your ability to counteract the tendency of your brain to get flooded with something called tryptophan during hard or long workouts. And tryptophan can make you sleepy during your workout and is one of the reasons the body can shut down towards the end of a race or a big workout. So the quick and dirty protein tip here is that smaller athletes can absorb about 20 grams or so of protein in a meal. Larger athletes can take on closer to 30 grams. However, this amount of protein can take up to 4 hours to digest. So I'm a bigger fan of hacking things and using pre-digested proteins in the forms of amino acid capsules or amino acid powders. If you use supplements like this, all you do is you take 5 to 10 grams of amino acids in a glass of water along with your breakfast. Alternatively, you could take a couple of scoops of protein powder in a glass of water with breakfast, but the protein powder is going to take longer to digest. So, let's summarize all the math and geek speak we've covered in the last 2 episodes, shall we? So, when putting together a pre-race or a pre-big workout meal, you include number 1, a low glycemic index carbohydrate, preferably from a couple different sources like fruit and potato, at around 400 calories for smaller athletes and 500 calories for bigger athletes, eaten 2 hours before the race or the big workout, and accompanied by another 100 to 150 calories from a sport drink, bar, or gel at some point in the hour leading up to your race or your big workout. If you happen to be a fat-adapted athlete or someone who's been following a high-fat diet, you could instead include a more fat-based meal, like a cup of coffee blended with butter and coconut oil, aka bulletproof coffee, with say 10 to 20 grams of protein or collagen or amino acids thrown in. Now, if it's a long event of 1.5 plus hours, you'll want to include another 100 to 150 calories of an easily digestible fat if you've chosen to eat the potato/fruit type of meal. And you can do this by throwing a big spoonful of, say, coconut oil on top of your sweet potato. And whether it's a long event or a short event, you should also consider including 20 to 30 grams of an easily digestible protein with breakfast, like a protein powder, or 5 to 10 grams of amino acids. Okay, so let's finish with a quick thought experiment. Was the guy in the very beginning of this 2-part episode series who ate oatmeal, fruit, toast, and scrambled eggs before his Ironman triathlon actually onto something? Well, here's the deal. Assuming he wasn't following some kind of a high-fat diet, he really needed just the oatmeal or toast. He probably could have left the scrambled eggs because that's a really complex protein to digest. He should have included some more easily digestible fats and proteins like coconut oil or amino acids. And rather than that second big meal of energy bars later on, all he really needed for a quote-unquote second breakfast was just another quick 100 to 150 calories in that last hour getting ready for the race. All right, I know we've covered a lot of math and a lot of science here, so if you have questions about what to eat for breakfast before your big workout or your race, then head over to facebook.com/getfitguy and leave your thoughts and comments over there. Remember to visit the website of our sponsor, Varidesk, over at varidesk.com. And until next time, I'm Ben Greenfield, the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Go get fit.